I still remember the day Lila walked into my dorm room, sunlight catching the gold in her hair. Her smile effortless, her voice warm enough to melt through my nerves. We laughed about how cramped the space was, how the bed squeaked, and how we'd survive on ramen and caffeine. From that moment, it felt like fate had handed me the perfect roommate. We shared playlists, swapped clothes, whispered about our crushes under fairy lights. She was everything I wasn't: bold, magnetic, unstoppable. And she made me feel seen. I didn't know then that she wasn't looking at me as a friend. She was studying me. Every word, every habit, every little thing that made me. Me. That first week felt like the beginning of something good. We became inseparable. Morning coffee runs, shared playlists, inside jokes. Lila was the kind of girl everyone noticed, but she always made me feel like I was her favorite person in the room. When Ryan came by one night to help hang my corkboard, she was nothing but friendly. Maybe a little too friendly. Maybe a little too friendly. I told myself I was imagining things, that her laugh was just loud, not flirtatious. Still, a chill ran down my spine when I caught her looking at him the way I used to look at crushes before we were official. Classes started, and Lila became my shadow. Same lectures, same study spots, even the same caramel latte order. At first, it was flattering, like having a built-in best friend. But soon I noticed she'd start finishing my sentences, dressing like me, mimicking how I styled my hair. I'd laugh it off, call it twin telepathy. But when she showed up one morning wearing the exact outfit I'd laid out the night before, I stopped laughing. Ryan thought it was funny, said imitation was flattery. Maybe he was right, maybe I was overthinking. Still, when Lila tagged along to our movie night and laughed a little too hard at his jokes, I felt something twist inside me. It wasn't jealousy. It was something colder, like watching someone slowly rearrange your life without permission. By the end of the month, I'd stopped questioning how perfect things seemed. It was easier to believe I'd finally found a balance, love, friendship, a rhythm that made me feel alive again. But perfection is fragile. Sometimes it hides the first crack before everything begins to break. It started small, my things going missing, then reappearing in strange places. A sweater I'd worn the day before, suddenly folded neatly on Lila's bed. My perfume bottle half empty, though I hadn't used it. I wanted to ask, but how do you accuse your best friend of something so trivial? So I swallowed the questions and smiled like nothing was wrong. Still, I began locking my journal every night, as if my thoughts themselves needed protection. The night before midterms, Lila came back late, her lipstick smudged, cheeks flushed. She laughed when I asked where she'd been, said she'd just gone for a walk, but then she mentioned Ryan. In that casual way people do when they want you to ask more. My heart sank. I didn't want to believe she was crossing a line, so I told myself she was just being friendly. That lie was easier to live with than the truth waiting in her eyes. Campus gossip travels faster than light. A friend mentioned seeing Lila at the cafe, where Ryan and I used to study together. Same corner table, same drink order, same laugh. I tried to shrug it off, but when I saw a selfie on her story, her hand brushing his shoulder, something inside me snapped. I realized then that imitation wasn't her goal anymore. Replacement was. When I confronted her, she laughed, said I was being paranoid, that Ryan just needed help with a class project. Her tone was gentle, almost pitying, the kind of voice people use when they're gaslighting you so softly you start doubting your own memories. That night, I reread my journal from the first day we met. Every line that once felt warm now burned with warning signs I had ignored. The next morning, Lila brought me coffee, smiling like nothing had happened. I wanted to believe her, to erase the crack between us. But as she handed me the cup, I noticed something that made my stomach turn. She was wearing my necklace, The one Ryan gave me last Christmas. When I pointed it out, she touched it lightly, smiled, and said, "Oh, this old thing. Guess we just have the same taste." That was the first time I felt afraid of her. It hit me like a punch in the gut. North. Ryan called, confused and nervous, asking why Lila had been texting him late at night, claiming she was worried about me. She'd been weaving herself into our conversations, inserting details only I should have shared. That was the first moment I realized she wasn't just a shadow. She was trying to step into my life, piece by piece, leaving me out of the story entirely. I tried to confront her directly. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, voice shaking. Lila laughed softly, tilting her head. "Doing what?" "I'm just helping," she said. But her eyes told a different story. The hunger, the envy, the desire to replace me. That night, I cried alone in our shared bathroom, the reflection in the mirror splitting me in two. Me, and the version of myself she was trying to erase. Then came the party. Ryan's birthday. I was thrilled. Until Lila arrived wearing the exact dress I had planned for the night. Every friend noticed, complimented her. I felt invisible, shrinking in my own celebration. She danced with Ryan, laughing in that same way I once laughed, tracing his gestures like she had memorized them. It wasn't flirting. It was possession. I realized I was watching my life being borrowed by someone else, and I couldn't stop it. After that night, I noticed the small, horrifying things. Emails she'd sent to professors in my name, social media messages she'd crafted to seem like me, even copying my handwriting on a note left in the library. I was losing myself. Every reflection in a window or mirror reminded me. She was no longer a roommate. She was a shadow trying to become me. I finally understood. This wasn't about friendship anymore. She wanted to replace me, my style, my friends, my boyfriend, my life. Every compliment she gave me felt like a lie. Every smile hid calculation. And in the quiet moments, when no one else was around, I felt the cold dread of realizing just how much power she'd been quietly amassing over my world. Every day became a test of my own memory. Lila would remind me of conversations I didn't have, correct details I knew were mine, and insist I was imagining things. I started questioning myself. Was I paranoid, or had I simply missed all the signs? When Ryan tried to defend me, Lila laughed it off, charming him, twisting his doubt into sympathy for her. I felt trapped, in my own dorm, in my own life, surrounded by shadows of a friendship that no longer existed. She started controlling small things, borrowing my notes, borrowing my laptop, even suggesting outfits for me to wear, claiming she just knew what looked best. Every time I tried to push back, she framed me as unreasonable, overreacting, unstable. I was losing touch with reality, doubting my instincts, afraid to make a move without her influence. Ryan noticed the change too. He saw how her laughter followed me, how her compliments always carried a subtle challenge, how she always positioned herself between us. One night, he pulled me aside and whispered, "Emily, I think she's trying to push you out." I wanted to believe him, but Lila had already set the stage, a web so intricate, I feared speaking out would only make me the villain, my own story. This new mess. I tried to reclaim my life quietly. Extra study sessions, writing in my journal, hiding my texts, keeping Ryan away from Lila when possible. But she was everywhere. At my favorite cafe, in the library corners I claimed as mine, even sitting on my usual park bench, smiling as if she had every right to be there. It wasn't just harassment. It was erasure. By the end of the week, I was exhausted. Emotionally, mentally, physically. Lila had made subtle changes in every part of my life, from my wardrobe to my friendships. She didn't need to attack. She just needed to be everywhere I was, smiling, charming, and slowly convincing the world I was the problem. I realized then that to fight her, I had to expose her for who she really was. But that meant risking everything I still had left. The confrontation started with one message I couldn't ignore. A photo of Lila and Ryan smiling on the campus rooftop, his arm around her shoulder. I stormed into the dorm, heart pounding, fury boiling under every step. Lila looked up calmly, her platinum blonde hair catching the morning light, and said, "You look upset. Did I do something wrong?" My blood ran cold. That smile wasn't innocence. It was victory. "You're insane if you think I'd let you control everything," I spat, stepping closer. Lila tilted her head, her smile wider, almost mocking. "Control? I thought we were just sharing," she said sweetly, twisting words like knives. I could feel my voice shake, my hands tremble. Every ounce of my composure threatened to crumble, but I refused to let her win. Ryan tried to intervene. "Emily, let's just calm down," Lila interrupted him, her tone suddenly icy. "No, he's mine now," she said quietly, almost to herself, but loud enough for both of us to hear. My heart froze. This was no longer subtle or psychological. She had declared war on my life, my relationship, my identity. I shouted, "You can't have him. You can't take my life." My voice echoed in the dorm, bouncing off the walls, shaking the room with raw fury. Lila didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned forward, whispering, "You'll see. Everyone will choose me. They already have." I felt a cold chill. It wasn't just about Ryan. She wanted my friends, my reputation, my very existence. That was the moment I realized subtlety was over. Lila had crossed every line, and I could no longer tiptoe around her manipulations. I grabbed my journal, proof of every conversation, every intrusion, every stolen moment, and held it like a shield. I was done hiding. This battle would either reclaim my life or leave me empty, but I refused to let her erase me. Sleep became impossible. Every creak in the dorm, every shadow in the corner of my eye felt like Lila watching, waiting. I couldn't trust my own thoughts anymore. I stared at my reflection in the mirror for hours, questioning if the Emily looking back was even real. Lila had taken pieces of me so subtly that I wondered if any part of me still belonged to me. I tried talking to Ryan, but every word was met with confusion, doubt, or defensiveness. Lila had spun the narrative so tightly that even he hesitated, unsure what was real. I felt my friendships fray, my support vanish, and the world narrow to a suffocating circle around the two of them. Fear replaced anger, and isolation became my constant companion. I began questioning my own memories. Moments I cherished suddenly seemed fabricated, distorted by Lila's manipulations. Did I imagine the stolen texts, the copied outfits, the whispered comments at night? Every recollection felt fragile, like sand slipping through my fingers. I couldn't breathe without feeling her presence lurking behind every thought. The final straw came when Lila started mimicking my handwriting. Notes, reminders, even doodles in my journal. Every unique mark I made appeared elsewhere, signed with her name, claiming ownership. That's when I realized she wasn't just trying to be me. She wanted to be me. Every thought, every habit, every relationship, hers to steal. My identity, my life, had become a battleground. I broke down completely. Tears, anger, frustration, all poured out onto my bed, my journal, my floor. I screamed into the emptiness, demanding the life that had been stolen from me. But even in that raw moment, something shifted. I realized Lila could never have me entirely. There were pieces of myself she could never touch, no matter how much she wanted them, and that realization sparked the first flicker of hope, the beginning of reclaiming what was mine. I started small, documenting everything. Screenshots, text messages, journal entries, even dates and times. Every stolen moment, every lie, every subtle manipulation, proof of what Lila had done. I realized the only way to reclaim my life was to expose her. For the first time in months, I felt control returning, a flicker of strength amid the exhaustion. I confronted Ryan first, showing him the evidence, the texts, the photos, the notes. His eyes widened, guilt and shock blending together. "Emily, I didn't realize," he whispered, pulling me into a hug. I could finally breathe. Lila's web of lies had begun to unravel, and allies returned to my side. I wasn't alone anymore. The final confrontation with Lila was inevitable. I laid it all out. The evidence, the lies, the theft of my life. Her mask cracked. The charm vanished. Her calm demeanor gave way to anger and desperation. She realized the power she had imagined over me was gone. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was free. Slowly, my life returned to me. I restored my routines, rebuilt trust with friends, and let Ryan back into my world fully. I learned to recognize boundaries, to protect my space, and to trust my instincts again. Lila's presence became a cautionary tale, a shadow I could acknowledge but no longer feared. Looking back, I realized that friendship isn't just about smiles and shared secrets. It's about trust, respect, and authenticity. I had lost all that to Lila, but I had found it again, stronger, clearer, and rooted in myself. My life wasn't stolen. I reclaimed it. And this time, nothing could take it away.